$87,000. I said it flat, staring at the separation statement. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. Patricia, the HR director, blinked. I'm sorry, Maya, what? September, October, November. I tapped the paper. Gross pay, $29,000 per month net pay. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. Bank statement, clean and cold. 0. For 3 months. Patricia's smile froze for half a second. Then she leaned back, folded her hands, and did that thing where she looked at me like I was a child who'd misread a menu. There's been a financial review. Payroll is reconciling. You'll get your final check when it's done. I didn't move. 3 years, 0.3 years I'd been at this place, 0.3 years of 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., weekends, holiday coverage, and never once a complaint. They fired me this morning, position elimination, they called it, and now they wanted me to walk away with nothing. Reconciling, I repeated, for 3 months. These things take time. Patricia, I'm not an employee anymore. I picked up my phone, tapped the record button, and set it down face up. I'm a creditor, and you owe me $87,000. Her face went tight. You're recording this? Is that a problem? Company policy. Company policy doesn't override state law. I pulled out a folder, pay stubs, bank statements, the signed offer letter with my salary, and I laid them out like evidence in a trial. September 15th, gross $29,000, net 0. October 15th, same. November 15th, same 0.3 months, not 1 cent. Patricia stared at the papers, then at the phone, then at me. Maya, let's be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm asking for what I'm owed. Finance is verifying. Verifying what? I stood up. That I worked, that I have a contract, that your system somehow forgot to pay me for a quarter of a year. I leaned in. You have 3 days. After that, I file with the labor board. I walked out before she could answer. In the hallway, my hands were shaking, not fear. Adrenaline 0.3 years of being the reliable one, the one who never complained, the one who stayed late and fixed other people's messes. And they tried to erase me like I never existed. I got to the elevator, and the doors opened to 2 colleagues. They saw me, saw the folder, saw my face. Maya, you okay? Fired. Today. I stepped in. Don't worry about it. They exchanged glances. Nobody spoke. I walked out of the building, got on the subway, and sat staring at the black tunnel walls. The number kept replaying in my head. $87,000. That was 8 months of rent. That was my student loan balance. That was the down payment on the small house I'd been saving for since I was 22. They didn't just fire me. They tried to steal from me, and they thought I wouldn't fight back. I called my lawyer friend, David, the second I got home. David, I need you. Shoot. Fired today. No severance. No pay for 3 months. He went silent for 2 beats. 3 months. 3 months. They can't do that. I know. I have evidence. Pay stubs, bank statements, the contract. I recorded HR telling me to wait. Good. Send it all to me, and don't sign anything. I won't. But after I hung up, I felt the weight of it. The fight. The time. The uncertainty. They had a legal team. I had a phone full of screenshots. I started pulling every file I could find. Old emails. Timesheets. Performance reviews. I built a timeline month by month, year by year. And then I noticed something. August, MY pay had been short by $200. I'd assumed it was a tax adjustment. July, same June, another $200 going back 6 months. There were small deductions I'd never questioned. Tiny amounts, easily missed, easily explained away. But they added up. I pulled out a notebook and wrote down every discrepancy. By midnight, I had a list of 12 pay periods with unexplained shortfalls. Not huge, not obvious, but consistent. Like someone had been shaving pennies off every check, hoping no one would notice. I called David again. There's more. They've been underpaying me for months. Small amounts, but it's a pattern. Pattern means intent. That's good for us. Good how? Intent changes the game. Accident is one thing. Pattern is fraud. I sat back. Fraud. That word changed everything. The next morning, I went back to the office to collect my personal things. I knew it would be awkward. I didn't expect to find a note taped to my keyboard. Check the old server logs. You're not the only one. No signature. No name. Just the note. I looked around. The office was quiet. A few people glanced at me and looked away, and my team was gone. Most of them had been laid off in the last 2 months. The only familiar face was Laura, a junior analyst I trained. She was staring at her screen, not looking up. I slipped the note into my pocket and grabbed my mug, my plant, the framed photo of my sister's dog. As I passed Laura's desk, she whispered without moving her lips. Check the shared drive. Folder called Garden. Then she went back to typing. I didn't stop. I walked out, took the stairs, and sat in my car with the note and Laura's cryptic message. What did I have to lose? That night, I logged into my old VPN account, still active because Patricia hadn't shut it off yet, and navigated to the company's shared drive. There was a folder named Garden, buried under 3 layers of subdirectories. Inside, Excel spreadsheets, payroll summaries, and a single PDF titled Bridge. I opened it. It was an internal audit report, dated 6 months ago, flagging irregular payroll adjustments in the operations department. The report named no one, but it listed amounts and dates. 54 employees had been underpaid in the last year. Total shortfall, over $200,000. $200,000. My mind raced. This wasn't just about me. This was a company-wide scheme. Someone had been systematically skimming wages, and someone, maybe Laura, maybe the person who left the note, had been collecting the evidence. I screenshotted everything. Then I called David again. David, I found something. I explained. He went quiet. Maya, that's a whistleblower case. If you bring that to the labor board, they won't just get your money. They'll get everyone. Then why didn't anyone come forward before? Fear. You said you're the one who got fired. Maybe they're waiting for someone to start. Someone to start. That was me. But I knew I needed more, that I needed someone inside to confirm that I texted Laura the next day. Just a simple thanks. She responded with a time and a place, a coffee shop 2 blocks from the office after work. When I got there, she was already seated, hands wrapped around her cup, eyes darting. She looked like she hadn't slept. Maya, I can't stay long. They're watching everything. Who's they's? Patricia. And Derek. Derek was the CEO. I'd met him twice. He had the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Why are you doing this? I asked. She looked down. Because last month, they shorted me $800 that I asked about it. Patricia said it was a performance adjustment. I have perfect performance reviews, and I knew it was a lie. She took a shaky breath. Then a friend in IT told me about the garden folder. He said it's been there for over a year, but nobody's touched it. Who's your friend? I can't tell you. He's scared, but he gave me the access code. She slid a piece of paper across the table. IT had a string of characters. That's the admin password for the old server. It's got the raw payroll data, every adjustment, every approval, every signature. I looked at the paper, then at her. Laura, if they find out. I know, she swallowed, but I can't be the only person who knows what's happening. Someone has to stop it. I took the paper. Thank you. I went home and, that night, logged into the old server. The admin password worked and I found the raw logs, thousands of entries that I sorted them by date, by adjuster, by amount. And I saw it, a pattern of small reductions, always approved by the same name, Patricia's name. But there was something else. Some adjustments were flagged with a code, SF02. I looked up that code in the system manual. IT meant Senior Executive Supplement. It was a bonus allocation that was supposed to come from a separate fund, but here it was being drawn from regular payroll, and the shortfall was being passed down to employees. That meant the money wasn't just being pocketed by Patricia. It was going to Derek, and Derek had to know. I had the evidence. I had the logs. I had Laura's testimony, if she'd give it, and I had the note and the folder and the pattern. But I still didn't have the biggest piece, the audio that I knew Patricia had spoken to Derek about this. I knew because I heard her once months ago, laughing in the break room. They never check the details. It's free money. I hadn't recorded it. I'd been too shocked. But I knew someone else might have. There were security cameras with audio in the break room. Maybe the footage was still available. I sent a late-night email to the IT support alias, the generic one that went to the help desk, claiming I had forgotten my security credentials and needed access to the camera archive for a compliance audit. I used my old work email, which was still active. They responded within an hour, assuming I still had clearance. I accessed the archive, typed in the date I remembered, and found the footage. Patricia's voice, clear as day. They never check the details. It's free money. I downloaded it. I had everything. But I still had to decide what to do next. I could go straight to the labor board. I could go to the press. I could leverage it for a settlement. I called David. I have it. All of it. Good. Now don't touch it. We plan our move carefully. If they know you have this, they'll burn everything. I hung up, staring at the files on my screen. 87,000 had turned into a much bigger number. But I knew that wasn't the point. The point was stopping them. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. They know you've been poking around. Be careful. I typed back. Who is this? No reply. An hour later, Patricia called. Maya, we need to talk. Come to the office. Derek wants to see you. I knew a trap when I heard one. But I also knew this was my chance. If they wanted to see me, they were scared. They wanted to offer something or threaten something. I said, I'll be there at 3 p.m. I hung up, grabbed my recorder, and thought, this is where the real game begins. Chapter 2, the trap that caught the wrong person. I walked into the office at 3:01 p.m., exactly 1 minute late. Never show them you're eager. Patricia met me in the lobby, her smile so tight it looked painful. Maya. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? She didn't answer, just led me down the hallway to the corner office, the one with the glass walls and the view of downtown. Derek was already inside, leaning back in his chair like he owned everything in sight, which, technically, he did. Sit. He gestured to a chair. I sat. Patricia stood by the door like a bouncer. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, screen up, recording already running. Derek noticed. Maya, you can put that away. We're not going to have a hostile conversation. Then you won't mind it being on. He smiled. It was the smile of a man who'd never been told no. I heard you found some interesting files. Interesting is one word for it. Let me save us both time. He leaned forward. I know you have payroll discrepancies, and I know you've been talking to Laura. I know you accessed the server archive. He spread his hands. And I want to make you a deal. I waited. $20,000. You walk away. You don't file anything. You don't talk to anyone. And we call this resolved. 20,000. Less than a third of what they owed me. And he said it like it was generosity. Derek, I'm owed 87,000. That's just my missing wages. That doesn't count the illegal termination, the pattern of fraud, or the fact that you've been stealing from 54 other employees. His smile flickered. You don't have proof of that. I have the garden folder. I have the audit report. I have the server logs. I paused. And I have a recording of Patricia saying it's free money. Patricia's face went pale. That's not admissible. Actually, it is. I turned to her. And even if it wasn't, the server logs are every adjustment approved under your name, every shortfall tagged SF02. That's the executive supplement code, right? The one that transfers employee wages into Derek's bonus pool. Derek's jaw tightened. You've done your homework. I've done my job, which is more than I can say for you. Silence. The air conditioning hummed. Then Derek laughed, a short, ugly sound. You think this is a game, Maya? You think a labor board complaint is going to bring down this company? I think it's going to make a lot of people very angry. And I think the press loves stories about executives stealing from their employees. Press, he stopped. You wouldn't. Try me. He leaned back, studying me. I could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Threat didn't work. Money didn't work. What was left? I'll double it, he said. 40,000. Cash. Today. 87,000 is what you owe me, plus a year severance for wrongful termination, plus damages. We're at over 200,000 now. Maya, don't be unreasonable. I'm not being unreasonable. I'm being accurate. There's a difference. Patricia stepped forward. You're making a huge mistake. You don't know what you're up against. Then tell me. She and Derek exchanged glances. Something passed between them, recognition, maybe, or fear. Patricia, Derek said quietly, get out. She hesitated, then walked out, pulling the door shut behind her. Derek looked at me. You want to know the truth? I want to know what you're about to offer me. I'm not offering anything. I'm telling you what happens if you go through with this. He leaned forward, elbows on the desk. You lose. The company files for bankruptcy. The employees get nothing because the creditors take everything. Your arbitration judgment becomes worthless because there's no money left to pay it. And I walk away clean because I've got assets offshore and a golden parachute clause in my contract that Patricia wrote herself. I felt my stomach drop. You're lying. I'm not. Check the public filings. We've been losing money for 18 months. The payroll skimming. That was Patricia's idea. She said we'd pay everyone back when we turn things around. But we never turned things around. He smiled again, but this time it was hollow. So what's it going to be, Maya? Your lawsuit or the 40,000? I sat there, processing. He was probably telling the truth. A tea lease part of it, I'd seen the financials. They were ugly, but if the company went bankrupt, I get nothing to SO with Laura. So would everyone. I need to think, I said. Take your time. He pulled out a checkbook. I'm writing this for 40,000. It's yours if you sign a non-disclosure and walk out that door. I looked at the checkbook, then at him. I'll take the check. He smiled. Good choice. But I'm not signing anything until my lawyer reviews it. The smile vanished. Maya. I said I'd take the check, but I didn't say I'd stop fighting. I stood up. You threatened me with bankruptcy. I'm threatening you with discovery. A bankruptcy court would love to know about those offshore accounts, and they'd love to see the pattern of fraud that caused the insolvency. You can't prove. 47,000. That's what Patricia's taken from you in bonuses this year. She's not just skimming for you. She's skimming for herself. I found the adjustments she tagged to her own compensation. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot. His face went white. She told me she was taking a pay cut to help the company. She lied. Patricia's been pocketing the difference on every employee adjustment. You thought you were getting the money. She's been taking a cut on every single one. 3% of every fraudulent deduction goes directly into a separate account under her name. I'd found that detail the night before, buried in the raw server logs. A tiny irregularity, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Derek stared at the screen. Then he said, very quietly, that bitch. The door opened. Patricia walked back in. Derek, I need to talk to you. He looked at her with pure hatred. You've been stealing from me. I what? 3%. Every deduction. You told me it was going into the company recovery fund. Patricia's composure cracked. Derek, I can explain. Explain how you've been skimming my money while pretending to help me? I stood there, watching the show. This was better than I'd hoped. They were turning on each other. Patricia pointed at me. She's lying. She fabricated those files. I found them in the server logs, I said. Time-stamped. Encrypted to your personal key. You're not just Patricia, the HR director. You're Patricia, the embezzler. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Denial, panic, fury, and then, finally, cold calculation. Fine, you want to play hard? She walked to Derek's desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out a folder. Then, let's play hard. She threw the folder on the table. This is the real audit, the one we never filed. IT shows Derek's been embezzling from the company since day one. Not just payroll, investor funds, client deposits, everything that I have the original. Derek lunged for it. I grabbed it first. Interesting. I flipped through the pages. It was damning. Bank transfers, forged signatures, fake invoices. Derek wasn't just a bad manager. He was a criminal. Derek's face was white. Patricia, you signed off on half of those. I did, and I kept copies. I looked between them. Two snakes tangled together, each holding venom for the other. And suddenly I realized I didn't need to fight them. I just needed them to destroy each other. But I also realized the bigger risk. If Derek went to prison, the company collapsed, and if Patricia went to prison, the evidence might get buried. And if I walked away with 40,000, I'd be complicit. I made a decision. I'm going to the labor board tomorrow, I said. I'm filing a complaint for the full amount. And I'm going to tell them everything I know about the payroll, about the offshore accounts, about both of you. I looked at Patricia, and I'm going to give them this audit report. You can't, Derek started. I can, and I will. I walked out. In the hallway, my phone buzzed. A text from Laura. IT friend says they're wiped the server. Evidence might be gone. I stopped walking. Wiped the server? That meant the files I had, the screenshots, the downloads, were all I had left. If they destroyed the originals, my evidence had to be ironclad. I texted back. Got copies. Meet me tonight. Then I went downstairs, got in my car, and sat there, heart pounding. I just walked out of an office with enough evidence to send 2 people to prison, and I'd refused a $40,000 payoff. This was either the smartest thing I'd ever done, or the stupidest. I didn't know which. Not yet. But I knew one thing for sure. The game had changed. IT wasn't about my 87,000 anymore. IT was about the 47 other employees who'd been robbed. It was about the 2 people who thought they could get away with it, and I was going to make sure they didn't. I started the car. The engine hummed. My phone buzzed again. Another text, but this one wasn't from Laura. They know you have the real audit. They'll come for you. Watch your back. Same unknown number as before. I typed, "Who is this?" A reply, "Someone who's been waiting for you to find it." I stared at the words. Someone was watching me. Someone inside. Someone who knew what I had and wanted me to use it. The question was, could I trust them, or was this another trap? I drove home with my foot pressed hard on the gas, my hands gripping the wheel, and my mind racing through every possible scenario. In every one of them, I was the one in the middle, the one who held the evidence, the one they'd come for next. But that was fine. I was ready for them. I'd been ready for them since the day I walked out of that conference room with $0 and a future to fight for. Tomorrow, I'd file the complaint. Tonight, I'd sleep with my phone in my hand and my front door locked. But before that, I had a message to send. I opened my contacts, found Laura's name, and typed, "Your IT friend. They're on our side, right?" Her reply came fast. "Yes, they're the one who's been feeding me everything. I trust them." Good. Tell them thank you. And tell them I need a full copy of the server before it was wiped. Every log, every adjustment, every approval. They already did. They saved it on a separate drive. They'll meet you tomorrow. I exhaled. That was the last piece I needed. The entire server, untouched, in my hands. I looked out the window at the dark city skyline. Somewhere out there, Derek and Patricia were panicking. Somewhere out there, my allies were preparing. And somewhere out there, the unknown number was waiting for me to make the next move. I smiled. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. But tonight, I'd count the wins I already had. The recordings, the audit report, the server backup, the silent ally. Everything I needed to bring them down. Chapter 3. The day the evidence walked in. I filed the complaint the next morning, 0.3 pages, single-spaced, every violation listed with date, amount, and supporting document. The labor board clerk stamped it and told me I'd hear back in 10 to 15 business days. 15 days. I couldn't wait that long. That afternoon, Laura's IT friend, a man named Eric who I'd never met face-to-face, left a USB drive taped to the underside of a park bench near my apartment. I picked it up at dusk, heart racing, and drove straight home. Inside, the complete server backup, every payroll record, every approval signature, every internal email about the cost reduction initiative that turned out to be fraud. I spent that night building a timeline that IT was meticulous, IT was damning, that IT was enough to put Derek in prison and Patricia right next to him. I was halfway through when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You need to know. Derek's lawyer called a meeting with the board tomorrow. They're going to vote on emergency liquidation. If they pass it, the company dissolves and all claims die with it. I typed back. Who are you? Someone who's been watching Derek for a year. He ruined my life too, but I can't come forward. I'm on the board. A board member. That was huge. I wrote. Can you delay the vote? Maybe, but only if I have leverage. The real audit, the one Patricia took. Does it show the offshore accounts? Yes, I have it. Then send me something I can show the other board members. Anonymously. Something that proves Derek's been siphoning money. They'll postpone if they think they'll be personally liable. I hesitated. Trusting an anonymous board member was risky, but I didn't have time to verify. I sent a single page, the one that listed the offshore transfers with Derek's signature. 15 minutes later, I've got it. I'll call for a postponement. You do what you need to do. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying the conversation with Derek, the panic in Patricia's eyes, the calm calculation in Eric's voice, and the board member. Who was they? Someone who'd lost something to Derek, someone with access and a grudge. At 8 a.m., I got a call from David. Maya, I just got word. Derek's lawyer filed an emergency motion to dismiss your arbitration, claiming you signed a waiver when you took severance. I didn't take severance. I never signed anything. His lawyer says they have a document with your signature. My blood went cold. That's a forgery. Can you prove it? I pulled up the letter I'd received when I was fired. IT was all there. The date, the wording, the fact that it said position elimination with no mention of severance. I emailed it to David. That's the only document I ever signed. Compare the signature. He called back in 30 minutes. It's different that I compared them. His is slightly slanted, yours is straight. Yours has a loop on the Y that his doesn't. It's a forgery. And you have the original to prove it. Then what do? We go to court. I'm filing a motion to compel the original document. If they can't produce it, the waiver disappears. And if they did forge it, that's evidence of fraud. I hung up, my hands shaking. They weren't just delaying. They were fabricating. That afternoon, I got a text from Laura. Eric says Derek's IT team tried to access his backup files. They're looking for the audit. He's scared. I called Eric. Are you safe? For now, I've got the backup hidden off-site. But if they find out I'm the one who copied it, I'm done. I won't let that happen. Make sure you don't. Because if I go down, so does everything I've saved. The weight of it pressed on me. I wasn't just fighting for my own money. I was the last line of defense for everyone who'd been silenced. 2 days later, David called with a court date. Judge set a hearing for the waiver motion. That's in a week. In the meantime, I've got the board members' call. They've postponed liquidation by 30 days, enough time for the arbitration to go through. 30 days. It was tight, but it was a chance. I spent that week doing 3 things. Organizing evidence, meeting with other affected employees, and tracking down the mysterious board member. I found them through a LinkedIn search, a woman named Eleanor, who'd been a senior vice president before Derek forced her out. She'd been on the board for 5 years and had everything to lose. I reached out to her directly. I know it was you. Thank you. Her response was cautious. I don't know what you're talking about. But she didn't deny it. She just said, if I were you, I'd make sure every piece of evidence is triple backed up. Derek will try to destroy it. I did. USB drives, cloud storage, hard copies in David's office. I left nothing to chance. The day of the hearing arrived, I wore a black suit and walked into the courtroom with my folder. Derek was there with his lawyer, a sharp, sleek woman who looked like she'd never lost a case. Patricia was there too, looking pale and small. The judge heard the waiver motion first. Derek's lawyer presented the signed document. I presented my original. David brought in a handwriting expert who testified within minutes. The signatures didn't match. The judge looked at Derek. Is this your document? Derek's lawyer stammered. We believe it was signed. Believe isn't evidence. The judge struck the waiver from the record. The arbitration proceeds. I exhaled. One battle won. But Derek wasn't done. After the hearing, his lawyer approached me in the hallway. My client wants to settle. $200,000. You walk away from everything else. $200,000. It was almost exactly what I calculated, but I knew what he wanted. Silence. He wanted me to drop the fraud allegations, the labor board complaint, the real evidence. No, I said. You're making a mistake. I've heard that before. I walked away. That night, my phone buzzed again. Eleanor, Derek's trying to get me voted off the board. He's accusing me of leaking information. I may not be able to help much longer. My stomach dropped. If she was gone, the liquidation vote would happen. I sent back. Can you hold on for one more week? Maybe, but hurry. I called David. We need to accelerate. Can we file for an emergency injunction to freeze the company's assets? Stop any liquidation before it happens. He thought about it. It's possible, but I need more proof. Proof that the fraud is actively harming the company right now. I have it. I sent him the audit report, the server logs, the recordings. That's enough to show the company is insolvent because of executive fraud. The court can appoint a receiver. David's voice changed. He was impressed. You've been busy. I've been furious. That's the same thing. The next morning we filed. By noon, a court order froze all the company's bank accounts, pending investigation. Derek's liquidation plan was dead in the water. Eric texted me. You did it. The whole building is in chaos. Patricia's office is empty. She left an hour ago. Patricia ran. That told me everything. She knew the net was closing. I called the labor board and updated them. They expedited my complaint. Within 3 days, I had a ruling. The company owed me $232,000 in back pay and penalties, and they owed 53 other employees a total of $380,000. The court-appointed receiver would disperse the funds from frozen accounts. I sat in my apartment, staring at the email that IT was done. Not just my money, everyone's money. The ones who'd been too scared to fight, the ones who'd been silenced, the ones who'd been told to let it go, they'd all get their share. But the biggest victory came the next week. Derek was arrested on fraud charges. Patricia was picked up at the airport trying to board a flight to Zurich. The district attorney used my evidence, all of it, to file a criminal case. I watched the news coverage and felt nothing. Not joy, not relief. Just a quiet satisfaction that the system had worked, finally, for the people who'd been crushed by it. That's when my phone rang, Laura. Maya, you need to see this. Eric just found another file, a confidential memo from Derek to Patricia, dated 3 years AG owed. IT mentioned someone else, someone higher up. Higher up than Derek. His partner, the one who's been funding the company. He's not just a silent investor. He's been in on everything. I sat up. Who is it? I can't say over the phone, but it's someone you know, someone you worked with. And they're going to be at the board meeting tomorrow, trying to get the receiver overturned. I looked at the clock. Tomorrow. That's what I've been given. Laura, send me the memo. Everything you have. I'll handle it. I hung up. A new threat, a new fight. But I wasn't the same person who'd walked out of that conference room 3 months ago. I had allies. I had evidence. And I had nothing left to lose. I opened the memo on my laptop. The name at the top made me stop breathing. It was my old mentor, the man who'd hired me, the one I trusted more than anyone. And he was the one who'd orchestrated the entire scheme. I stared at the screen, processing the betrayal. Then I made a call. David, we need to add a new defendant. Who? Someone I thought was on my side. He's been pulling strings from the start, and I have proof. The game had a new player, but this time, I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for the truth about everything I believed in. Tomorrow, I'd go to the board meeting. I'd confront him, and I'd make sure everyone knew exactly what he'd done. I closed my laptop and looked out the window. The city lights were bright, the night was quiet, but I knew, tomorrow, all hell would break loose. And I was ready for it. Chapter 4, the man who taught me everything. I walked into the boardroom at 9 a.m. sharp, the same building where I'd spent 3 years. But this time I wasn't an employee. I was an accuser. Eleanor sat at the far end of the table, her face carefully neutral. Eric was there too, posing as IT support, ready to testify if needed. The other board members looked nervous, shuffling papers, avoiding eye contact, and at the head of the table, in the chair that used to be Derek's, sat the man I'd once called my mentor, Arthur Chen. He'd hired me fresh out of grad school. He taught me how to negotiate contracts, how to manage teams, how to spot a bad deal from across the room. He was the reason I'd stayed at the company for 3 years, because I believed in his vision, and all along, he'd been the architect of the fraud. Maya, he said, smiling like we were old friends. I was hoping you'd come. Were you? I knew you'd find out eventually. You always were too smart for your own good. He leaned back, hands folded. Let me save us both time. You have evidence that I have a counteroffer. Walk away with $300,000, and I'll make sure Derek and Patricia take the fall alone. They're already arrested, already indicted. You can have your money, your reputation, and your peace. All you have to do is stop digging. I looked around the room. The board members were watching me. Eleanor's eyes were fixed on Arthur. Eric stood by the door, ready. You think I'm doing this for the money? I said. I think you're doing this because you feel betrayed. And I understand that. But feelings pass. Money doesn't. He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't right either. I'm not here for money, Arthur. I'm here because you ruined 54 people's lives. You stole from your own employees to fund your side deals. You let Derek take the public blame while you pulled strings from behind the scenes, and you made me believe in a company that was built on theft. Arthur's smile didn't waver. That's a strong accusation. It's a proven one. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the room's projector. I have the confidential memo you sent to Patricia 3 years ago, the one outlining the plan. Reduce payroll by 3% annually, distribute through executive supplement fund, shield via offshore accounts. The memo appeared on the screen. Arthur's face went pale. Where did you get that? From the server backup you thought you'd wiped. But Eric here, I gestured to the IT consultant, had a second copy, hidden, encrypted, untouchable. Arthur turned to Eric. I've been waiting a long time for this, Eric said quietly. You fired me 6 years ago for asking questions about the books. I never stopped asking. The board members started murmuring. One of them, a woman in a blue suit, stood up. Arthur, is this true? It's a fabrication. Then explain the signature. I zoomed in on the memo. That's your private signature, the one you use for offshore accounts. I had it authenticated. Arthur looked at the screen, AT the board, AT me, and for the first time, his composure cracked. Maya, you don't understand what you're doing. This company has clients, investors, families depending on it. If you bring this to the authorities, everyone loses, not just me. Everyone loses anyway, I said, because you've been bleeding the company dry for 3 years. The only difference is whether they know the truth. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. You think this is about justice, about fairness? He shook his head. Maya, I hired you because you were idealistic and I thought I could teach you how the world really works, but you never learned. You never understood that power comes from control, from knowing where the bodies are buried. I know where they're buried, Arthur. I know because you showed me. Every lesson you taught me about contracts, negotiations, leverage, I used all of it. Against you. His laugh died. What are you saying? Your memo? I didn't just find it. I traced it. Every offshore account, every shell company, every hidden transaction. I have all of them, and I've already turned them over to the SEC. The room went silent. Arthur's face drained of color. You wouldn't. I would, and I did AT 7 a.m. this morning before I walked in here. I looked at the board members. The SEC is already investigating. Your assets are frozen. Your accounts are flagged. And your partners are being contacted as we speak. One of the board members stood up. Arthur, is this true? He didn't answer. He just stared at me with something between hatred and grudging respect. You always were my best student, he said finally. I learned from the best, and then I surpassed him. I turned to the board. The company is going into receivership. The receiver has agreed to use frozen assets to pay all back wages. Every employee will get what they're owed, including the ones who are too scared to come forward. That's not negotiable. A murmur of approval. Eleanor nodded. Eric smiled. But I wasn't done. Arthur, you're going to jail. Derek and Patricia are already there. I made sure the evidence was airtight. You'll be tried for fraud, embezzlement, and racketeering. The minimum sentence is 10 years. I have lawyers. Your lawyers can't help you. I have the originals, the backups, and the sworn testimony of 3 former employees who witnessed your meetings with Patricia. I paused. Including one you didn't count on. I nodded to Eric. He opened the door and a woman walked in. I didn't recognize her at first. Then I saw her face. Older, thinner, but unmistakable. It was Sarah, the former CFO who disappeared 2 years ago, supposedly on medical leave. Hello, Arthur, she said quietly. Arthur's face went white. You're dead. I'm very much alive, and I've been waiting for this moment. Sarah turned to the board. I was the one who first noticed the discrepancies. Arthur threatened me, silenced me, and paid me off to leave quietly, but I kept a journal of everything, dates, amounts, names. Maya found me through Eric and convinced me to testify. The room erupted. Board members shouting, papers flying, Arthur slumping in his chair like a puppet with cut strings. I watched it all and felt nothing but cold clarity. This was the final piece. Sarah's testimony was the hammer that would break him. Arthur looked up at me. Maya, please. Don't please me. You knew exactly what you were doing. You took my trust, my loyalty, my 3 years of hard work, and you turned it into a slush fund for your investors. You didn't just steal from the company. You stole from me, from Laura, from everyone who believed in you. I'll make it right. You can't. The money's gone. The trust is gone. The only thing left is the truth. I picked up my phone and turned off the projector. And that's what I gave to the authorities. I walked to the door, then stopped. Arthur, I want you to remember something. When you hired me, you said I'd go far. You were right. I went far, just in the opposite direction from you. I left the boardroom. Behind me, I could hear Arthur's voice, pleading, bargaining, but I didn't look back. In the hallway, Eric caught up to me. Maya, that was incredible. How did you find Sarah? She found me. She saw the news coverage of Derek's arrest and reached out through Laura. She's been waiting to come forward, but she needed someone to make the first move. I smiled. I was happy to oblige. What happens now? The company's done, but the employees get their money. The receiver will handle the rest. And Arthur, Derek, and Patricia will face trial within the year. And you. I paused. I'm done fighting. I've been fighting for 3 months. It's time to build something new. I walked out of the building and into the sunlight. My phone buzzed. Laura, I saw the news. You did it. Thank you. Then David, congratulations. The SEC just announced formal charges. You're a hero. I wasn't a hero. I was just someone who'd been pushed too far and refused to stay down. That evening, I sat in my apartment with the windows open. The spring air smelled like rain and new beginnings, and my bank account showed a pending deposit, the back wages, the penalties, the full amount. It was more than I'd ever imagined. But the number didn't matter as much as the feeling of being heard, of being believed, of finally having my voice, my work, my worth acknowledged. My phone rang again. This time, it was a headhunter. Maya, I've been following your case. There's a position at a tech firm in Seattle. They need an operations director with your exact background. The salary is competitive. I listened. I took notes. And when I hung up, I smiled. The fight was over, and the future was wide open. 3 weeks later, I moved to Seattle. New city, new job, new apartment overlooking the bay. Laura came with me. She'd gotten a promotion at a local startup. Eric stayed behind to consult on the receiver's investigation. Even Eleanor sent me a note. thanking me for exposing the truth and offering a glowing reference. Arthur's trial made the front page. He was convicted on all counts. Derek and Patricia pleaded guilty in exchange for reduced sentences. The employees got their money. The company was dissolved. I read the headlines on my phone while sitting in my new office, the first day of my new job. The sun was rising over the water. The world felt fresh, clean, full of possibility. I didn't dwell on the past anymore. I'd learned what I needed to learn. Trust yourself. Collect your evidence, and never let anyone tell you your worth isn't real. And if I ever faced another injustice, well, I knew exactly what to do. I closed my phone, turned to my new team, and smiled. Let's get to work. This is the story of a woman who refused to be invisible and who made sure the world saw exactly what she was worth.